On November 13th, 2023, authorities nabbed 73-year-old grandmother Donna Adelson at the airport. Her sensational arrest made all the headlines. Her son had been convicted of murder just a week before, and now Donna Adelson was boarding a plane with a one-way ticket to Dubai and then on to Vietnam. Now, that flight may become one of the biggest pieces of evidence in a murder case against Donna. Donna's son Charlie had been convicted of murder just the week before. Charlie Adelson had been accused of hiring two hitmen to kill his former brother in law, Dan Markel. Markel was a law professor who had been married to Charlie's sister, Wendi. They were divorced, but entangled in a very messy child custody dispute. Now, according to prosecutors, Charlie hired the hitmen to make his mother happy. She wanted unimpeded time with her grandkids, and with Dan Markel out of the way, that could finally happen. Charlie was convicted on November 6th, 2023, and just 7 days later, on the 13th, Donna and her husband, Charlie's father, Harvey, drove to the airport and presented tickets for a one-way trip to Dubai and then to Vietnam. But as they were boarding, actually literally on the jetway, authorities swooped in and arrested Donna. Harvey was allowed to go free.
Hi, how are you? You have an ID? Mrs. Adelson? Nice meeting you. Yeah. You're under arrest. Cell phone? No, I don't want to give it to you. Why do I have to?
Because my attorney said not to.
Why do I have to give it to you? This is evidence. Evidence. Do me a favor. She's under arrest. You can
I have to go with. I have to go. I have to go.
Let
me help you out. No, I have to stay. Please don't do this.
Don't stay. You need to grab the bags. Take the bags.
Yeah.
And you need to wait outside.
Okay.
My husband's almost 80 years old. He can't
Yeah,
come
I
with
can't.
me.
Please, can I go?
No, you can't join me there.
Oh, don't do this, please.
Please.
Oh,
Someone's
God.
got to help him get home. This is terrible. You can't do this. This is insane.
Go ahead, grab it. Hold on to that for me.
Is that okay with you?
Please. You know, put that with handcuffs on. She's not going anywhere. Stay a seat.
Take it away from here. You take it right through here.
Yeah, we'll go back.
You take it right through here.
Yeah, we'll go back out and just.
You're making a mistake. It's another mistake. It's two mistakes.
I try to take the
Please.
That entire affair was captured on police body cam. Donna was placed in the back of the patrol car and taken into custody. She was denied bail for obvious reasons that she might try to flee the country. In just 2 weeks, Donna faces trial in Tallahassee on her own charges of murdering, conspiring, and soliciting the murder of Dan Markel. Now her team acknowledges that her attempt to get out of the country may be a prime argument of the state in her trial. The state may argue that it shows consciousness of guilt, as the legal term is. In other words, that Donna tried to flee because she knew she was guilty. Donna's legal team is trying to stop the state from presenting evidence about this would-be flight to Vietnam.
And so, look, consciousness of guilt is a very, look, this is going to be, I anticipate, one of their prime arguments in this case, and it's a red herring. And so it should be prevented based on the totality of the circumstances and looking at that 11th Circuit standard.
The defense wants the evidence about the trip excluded because they say nothing about the trip suggests she thought she was guilty.
The state went to tremendous means to try to wait to arrest Mrs. Adelson until she tried to step foot on an airplane. Their argument is going to be, we believe that suggests flight, and that the flight suggests a guilty mind or conscience. She didn't hide her travel. You're going to see that she applied for a visa with the State Department. You're going to see that she spoke openly to friends about it. In fact, friends booked her trip. You're going to see that she spoke to her lawyers about it. Okay, you're going to see that to make sure that she wasn't committing a crime. You're going to see that she used her own passport. You're going to see that her passport was in her own name. You're going to see that she booked a hotel. You're going to see that she went to her own airport.
The defense pointed out that Donna has traveled many times after the murder. She always came back before. So why would the state think she wouldn't have come back this time? At Friday's hearing, the judge wanted to know, is there evidence that would suggest she was using this trip to flee the country?
Meaning, were there internet searches? Was there some sort of research about extradition?
Sure.
Are there things that otherwise go to, this is not just the purchase of a flight?
And her lawyer had to admit that the answer was yes. There is some evidence of that.
Sure. There are pieces of evidence that I believe the state intends to try to admit that would show both discussion and possibly documentary evidence of looking at places where there are no extradition. Yes, there are evidence of that. That one moment. Yeah, I will. There is evidence of that for sure. But again, that's part of the totality of circumstances. There's explanations for that also as to why that doesn't show that they're going to become fugitives.
The state has several pieces of evidence that suggests Donna was headed to the airport because she was trying to flee the country. First, there's a hot mic discussion that Donna had with probably Harvey, her husband. She had been on the phone with Charlie, who, of course, was in jail. This was in the week following his conviction. Charlie was in jail, and those phone calls are always recorded. It says so when you call the convict, it says you are going to be recorded on this phone call. So she knew that it was being recorded, but she thought the line had been disconnected, and the recorder kept going. So the phone call wasn't meant to be recorded, but nonetheless, you could hear it on the jail recording.
I just said to Annie, I'm on the phone with Charlie, and I'll call you when I get off. So I'm not going to call. Maybe I'll call her before Wendi comes. All right. I'll call her. Charlie calls, then I'm going to get off. So, yeah. So the things that we want is for him to, we'll talk about in more detail later. I'll tell her I thought at first you needed to come here, but I realized that, most of everything we can do, I'll have to tell her we're leaving the country. They're not recording my phone. If they are, they will just stop. I mean, what am I going to do? I can't write it. Dan says don't put anything in writing. I can't. What am I supposed to do? Should I? I can't. So I'm supposed to call Dan, but that line is included. Because I don't have a private line with Dan. So they're going to either hear me tell Dan to call Annie, or they're going to hear me tell Annie. They might as well hear me. Yeah. I mean, what's the option?
This phone call is great evidence for the state because it shows that Donna Adelson knew she was the target of an investigation. After all, she thought it was possible her phone was being recorded. It also says she was consulting with somebody named Dan. She's actively avoided putting things in writing on the advice of this person, Dan. That's very likely Dan Roshbaum, who represented Charlie Adelson at his murder trial and who now represents Donna Adelson at her murder trial. This excerpt also shows that Donna does not want the authorities to know she's leaving the country. She tells somebody, which presumably is Harvey, that if they're recording her, then what's her option? She's just got to talk about it. The state will say all of these facts show that the reason Donna was headed for far-flung lands was to get away before she was arrested, and she was leaving everything behind as she headed out. The second piece of evidence the state will use is this very telling excerpt from one of Donna's jail calls to her convicted son, Charlie.
Well, I'm going to make a decision at some point. So after speaking to Dan this morning and knowing what they're thinking up there, and I don't know if we'll make it out in time. I really don't. But Dan said, you might, or you might do all of this, get to the airport, and they'll stop us. And that could happen. It could happen. I don't know, but it's worth a try.
The way Donna phrases things says a lot. If we'll make it out on time suggests she's fleeing something. Florida wasn't at war, so what was she running from? Donna also seems clear that somebody might try to stop her at the airport, but she says it's worth a try. So clearly she's trying to accomplish something by leaving. And the state will say that something is getting to a country which has no extradition treaty with the United States. And in a third critical piece of evidence from the jail calls, she admits that is the kind of country she was looking for.
We've been looking it up over and over. Could things change if there is extradition from Vietnam? Because we've looked at all the places. I mean, I could go to Korea and China, but there's no extradition. But we're looking for places where there's no extradition.
Of course, there's always the possibility that somebody would run just to avoid going to jail, not because they know they're guilty. Donna's attorney, Daniel Roshbaum, made that exact argument at the hearing on Friday. Shortly after her arrest, Donna had made complaints about the way she was being treated in jail. The state filed a motion asking the judge to keep Donna's team from offering any evidence about how Donna was being treated at the jail. The state called it statements eliciting sympathy for the defendant. In responding to the motion, Donna's lawyer, Dan Roshbaum, said that the way she was treated might be a reason why she would flee.
I don't plan on offering it. It depends, though, what comes up at trial, right? So, including consciousness of guilt, because it goes into why someone might do what she did to avoid being in jail, waiting a trial, right? So, again, I don't plan on doing it. We don't plan on doing it openly, and we would come to you before we did it, but I didn't want to agree to it.
In other words, he was suggesting that Donna knew how bad jail was because Charlie had been stuck there for more than a year before he was convicted. Maybe, Donna's lawyer is suggesting, Donna fled because she didn't want to be imprisoned for a year while she awaited trial, not because she thought she was guilty. But the judge pointed out that jail is pretty much bad for everybody, using these immortal words.
Well, as an important proposition of law, jail sucks. However, why it would become relevant that jail sucks, that's really the question.
The judge denied Donna's motion. That means that the state will be able to present evidence that Donna Adelson tried to flee. The judge told Donna's team that they could submit a proposed limiting instruction. That would be an instruction that would tell the jury that they could use the evidence of the flight for some reasons, but not for other reasons. But it's not really clear what those differences would be, since, of course, the defense has not yet submitted that proposed limiting instruction. It was a huge loss for Donna Adelson. Dan Roshbaum, her attorney, is right. This will be a big piece of the evidence that the state will use against Donna Adelson, meaning that, ironically, one of the pieces of evidence that may convict Donna Adelson of murder is a flight she never even took. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.